Most people think they have a money problem. They think if they could just earn a little more, everything would change. A bigger paycheck, a better job, a promotion, a side hustle, and then finally, life would become easier. But what if the problem isn't how much money you make? What if the problem is how quickly you spend it? Imagine two people. The first person earns $50,000 a year. The second person earns $100,000 a year. Most people automatically assume the second person will become wealthier. But that's not always true, because money isn't only lost through bad investments. It's often lost through ordinary decisions, small purchases, impulse buys, emotional spending, the kind of spending that feels harmless in the moment, yet quietly destroys your future. This story is about a man named Michael. Michael wasn't poor, but he wasn't wealthy either. He had a decent job, a decent apartment, a decent car, and a decent salary. From the outside, everything looked fine, but every month ended the same way. His paycheck arrived, bills were paid, a few purchases were made, and somehow, almost nothing remained. It frustrated him because he wasn't doing anything crazy. He wasn't buying yachts. He wasn't flying on private jets. He wasn't spending thousands on luxury watches. Yet year after year, his savings account barely moved. One evening, Michael sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, bank account visible on the screen. He began scrolling through his transactions. Coffee, online shopping, new headphones, food delivery, streaming subscriptions, random purchases he barely remembered making. None of them seemed important, but together, they told a very different story. For the first time, Michael realized something. His money wasn't disappearing all at once. It was leaking, slowly, silently, every single day, like a bucket with tiny holes. Each hole looked insignificant, but over time, the bucket never filled. That night, Michael couldn't stop thinking. If small decisions were causing the problem, could small decisions also create the solution? The next morning, while listening to a personal finance podcast during his commute, he heard a sentence that completely changed his perspective. The speaker said, "If you still want it after 30 days, buy it." That's it. One sentence. Simple. Almost boring. Michael nearly ignored it, but something about it stayed in his mind. 30 days. No complicated budgeting system. No extreme sacrifice. No financial guru promising overnight success. Just one rule. Wait 30 days before buying something you don't truly need. At first, Michael thought it sounded ridiculous. Why wait 30 days? If he wanted something, he could afford it. Wasn't that the point of making money? But later that day, an interesting situation appeared. While scrolling online during lunch, he saw a brand new smartwatch. It looked incredible. Modern design, advanced features, beautiful marketing. Within minutes, he convinced himself he needed it. His finger moved toward the purchase button. Then he remembered the rule. 30 days. Instead of buying it, he wrote the item down in a notebook. Date, price, reason for wanting it. Then he closed the page. For the rest of the day, he kept thinking about the watch. It felt uncomfortable, almost like denying himself a reward. But something unexpected happened. A week later, the excitement had already faded. 2 weeks later, he barely thought about it. By the time 30 days passed, he no longer wanted it, not even a little. The urge that once felt urgent had completely disappeared. And just like that, like $300 stayed in his bank account. That moment changed everything, because Michael discovered a truth most people never learn. The strongest spending desires are often temporary. They feel permanent, but they're usually emotional, not rational, and emotions rarely last. For the first time in years, he felt curious. What would happen if he applied this rule to every non-essential purchase? He didn't know it yet, but that simple question was about to change the next decade of his life. Every change looks small when it begins. That's why most people ignore it. The first month of the 30-day rule didn't transform Michael's life. His bank account didn't suddenly explode. He didn't become rich. Nothing dramatic happened. And that's exactly why most people would have quit, because success was invisible. But Michael kept going. Whenever he wanted something that wasn't essential, he wrote it down. A new jacket, a gaming console, wireless earbuds, a designer backpack, a weekend shopping spree. Every item went onto the list. Then the countdown began. 30 days. At first, the process felt frustrating. Sometimes he would stare at products online for hours, reading reviews, watching videos, imagining how great it would feel to own them. His brain constantly tried to justify the purchase. It's on sale. I deserve it. I work hard. Everyone else has one. What's the harm? But Michael had made a promise, not to his bank account, to himself. And every time he delayed a purchase, something fascinating happened. The excitement slowly disappeared. Not always, but surprisingly often. By the end of the first month, he reviewed his notebook. Out of 12 items on the list, he only wanted 3. The other 9, completely forgotten. Just 30 days earlier, they felt important. Now they felt meaningless. That realization shocked him because it exposed a truth about human psychology. Many purchases are not driven by need. They're driven by emotion, boredom, stress, envy, loneliness, excitement, marketing. The purchase itself isn't solving a problem. It's temporarily changing a feeling, and feelings change quickly. For the first time, Michael began noticing how often companies were competing for his attention. Advertisements everywhere, on social media, on websites, in emails, on billboards. Every message was carefully designed to create urgency. Buy now, limited time, don't miss out, last chance, exclusive offer. Michael started seeing the game. The goal wasn't to help him become wealthy. The goal was to separate him from his money. And once he noticed it, he couldn't unsee it. A few months later, another test arrived. His friends planned a weekend shopping trip. Nothing unusual, just a normal Saturday. But throughout the day, Michael watched people spend money almost automatically. A new pair of shoes, a watch, a jacket, accessories, random purchases that weren't planned beforehand. Everyone looked happy, at least temporarily. For a moment, Michael felt left out. Maybe he was becoming too strict. Maybe he should just enjoy life. Maybe he was overthinking everything. Then he asked himself one question: will I still want this in 30 days? The answer surprised him. No, not really. So he walked away. And for the first time in years, he felt powerful. Not because he bought something, because he didn't. Most people think freedom means having the ability to spend money. But real freedom is having the ability to say no. As the months passed, something else began changing. His savings account, slowly, quietly, without excitement, without viral success, without a lucky investment. The number kept growing. A few $100s, then a few thousand, then more. For the first time in his adult life, money was staying instead of escaping. That created a completely different feeling. Not excitement, security. Michael slept better. He worried less. Unexpected expenses no longer felt like disasters. A car repair, manageable. Medical bill, manageable. Emergency, manageable. Because he finally had a buffer, and that buffer created peace. Something money rarely gets credit for. People often imagine wealth as luxury, expensive houses, sports cars, private jets. But Michael was discovering a different kind of wealth. The ability to handle problems without panic. The ability to make decisions without desperation. The ability to sleep peacefully at night. And honestly, that felt better than any gadget he had ever purchased. One evening, about 8 months after starting the rule, Michael opened his notebook again. He expected to see dozens of items. Instead, he noticed something strange. The list was getting shorter, not because he was buying more, because he wanted less. The cravings were disappearing. His mindset was changing. He no longer viewed shopping as entertainment. He no longer used spending as a reward. And that shift was far more important than saving money, because for the first time, he was becoming intentional. Without realizing it, Michael had stopped fighting his finances. He had started changing his behavior, and behavior is where wealth is built. Most people spend years looking for a financial shortcut. Michael was beginning to understand there wasn't one. There was only discipline, repeated consistently, day after day, month after month, year after year. What he didn't know yet was that the biggest test of the 30-day rule was still ahead.
And it would force him to choose between looking rich and becoming rich. The first year passed quietly. No dramatic transformation. No overnight riches. No viral success story. If someone looked at Michael's life from the outside, they probably wouldn't notice any difference. He still drove the same car. Still lived in the same apartment. Still worked the same job. Everything appeared normal. But beneath the surface, everything was changing. His savings account had reached a level he had never seen before. For the first time in his life, he had real financial momentum. And that's exactly when the biggest temptation arrived. One afternoon, Michael parked his aging sedan in the company parking lot. As he stepped out, a brand new luxury SUV rolled in beside him. The vehicle was beautiful. Glossy black paint, massive wheels, premium interior. The kind of car that instantly attracts attention. The driver was someone Michael knew, a coworker named Ryan. Ryan stepped out smiling. Several employees immediately gathered around. Compliments, questions, admiration, attention. Michael watched from a distance, and for the first time in months, he felt something dangerous. Envy. Not because he needed a new car, because he wanted the feeling that came with it. Respect, status, recognition. That evening, Michael searched for the vehicle online, just to look. At least that's what he told himself. Within minutes, he was customizing colors, comparing models, calculating monthly payments, watching review videos, imagining himself driving it. The old emotions returned immediately. Excitement, desire, urgency, the same emotions that used to control his spending. Only this time, the purchase wasn't a few $100s. It was nearly $60,000. Michael sat quietly staring at the screen. His finger hovered over the financing calculator. The monthly payments seemed manageable. The dealership offered attractive financing. The salesperson promised a special discount. Everything appeared reasonable. And that's what made it dangerous. Because most financial mistakes don't look like mistakes. They look justified. The next day, he mentioned the car to a friend. His friend smiled. "Dude, you work hard. You deserve it." Another friend agreed. "You only live once." A third friend said something even more powerful. "What's the point of making money if you never enjoy it?" For a moment, Michael almost surrendered. The logic sounded convincing. After all, he could technically afford the payment. But then he remembered something. Years earlier, he had also been able to afford many purchases. And yet somehow, he was always broke. Affording a payment and affording a lifestyle were not the same thing. That night, instead of visiting the dealership, he opened his notebook, and he wrote down the car, price, monthly cost, insurance, maintenance, fuel, everything. Then he applied the same rule, 30 days. Immediately, his brain protested. This is different. This isn't a smartwatch. This is important. This is a major life upgrade. But rules only matter when they're inconvenient. Anyone can be disciplined when it's easy. Character is revealed when temptation becomes powerful. The first week felt painful. Everywhere he looked, he noticed luxury vehicles. Social media seemed full of them. Advertisements followed him online. Videos appeared in his recommendations. It felt as if the entire world wanted him to buy that car. And maybe it did. Because modern marketing doesn't sell products. It sells identities. The car wasn't being marketed as transportation. It was being marketed as success, confidence, importance, status. Michael slowly began asking a different question. What am I really buying? Was he buying a vehicle? Or was he buying validation? That question hit harder than he expected. Because deep down, he already knew the answer. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. The excitement started fading. Just like the smartwatch. Just like the headphones. Just like the dozens of purchases before them. The emotional storm slowly disappeared. And when emotion left, logic arrived. For the first time, Michael examined the numbers objectively. The down payment alone could dramatically increase his investments. The monthly payments could accelerate his financial goals. The insurance costs could fund future opportunities. Suddenly the car looked different. Not bad. Just expensive. Far more expensive than the sticker price suggested. Then came day 30. Michael opened his notebook, looked at the car, looked at the numbers, and smiled. For the first time in his life, he didn't want it anymore. Not because the vehicle was bad, because he finally understood the true cost. And that decision changed everything. Because the money he didn't spend on the car didn't disappear. It stayed working for him, month after month, year after year. While others upgraded lifestyles, Michael upgraded his future. And slowly, something fascinating happened. The gap between him and everyone else began growing. Not visibly, financially. While others increased expenses, Michael increased assets. While others chased appearances, Michael chased freedom. Most people never notice this difference, because it happens silently. But over time, silent decisions create loud results. And Michael was about to discover the most powerful truth about wealth. A truth that would eventually save him far more than $100,000. Because money doesn't grow when you spend it. It grows when you give it time.
Years passed. Not many, just enough. 3 years, then 5, then 7, and something remarkable began happening. The gap, the invisible gap between Michael and everyone around him. At first, nobody noticed, because wealth doesn't always announce itself. In fact, real wealth is often silent. Michael's friends were earning more money than ever. Promotions, raises, bonuses, new jobs, higher salaries. From the outside, they looked successful. New cars appeared, bigger apartments, luxury vacations, designer clothes, expensive gadgets. Every year seemed to bring another upgrade, and every year, their expenses grew with them. Michael watched it happen repeatedly. A raise arrived, a bigger lifestyle followed, another raise arrived, another lifestyle upgrade followed. It was like running on a treadmill, faster and faster, but never getting anywhere. Financial experts call this lifestyle inflation. Most people don't even realize it's happening. They think their income is increasing, but their spending grows at the same speed, sometimes faster. As a result, nothing changes. Michael had escaped that trap, not because he earned dramatically more money, because he controlled what happened after he earned it, and that difference was becoming powerful. One evening, Michael sat at his desk reviewing his finances. Something caught his attention: his investments. For years, he had been directing the money saved through the 30-day rule into simple investments. Nothing exciting, nothing flashy, no get-rich-quick schemes, no risky gambles, just consistent contributions, month after month, year after year. At first, the growth felt painfully slow, almost invisible, but now, the numbers were starting to move, fast, much faster than before, because Michael had finally encountered a force more powerful than income: compounding. The principle is simple: money earns money, then that money earns money, then that money earns even more money. Over time, the effect becomes extraordinary. Most people underestimate compounding because it starts slowly, very slowly, like planting a tree. For years, almost nothing seems to happen. Then one day, the growth becomes impossible to ignore. Michael stared at the screen. His investments had generated more money during the previous year than he had saved during some entire years of his old life. That realization stunned him, because suddenly he understood something. The goal was never to work harder forever. The goal was to make his money work harder. Every unnecessary purchase he avoided years ago was now producing results. The smartwatch, the luxury upgrades, the impulse purchases, the expensive car. Each decision had created more than savings. It had created opportunity. The money wasn't gone. It had been deployed, like tiny financial soldiers working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without vacations, without complaints, without sleep. Meanwhile, life continued testing him. One afternoon, Michael met Ryan for lunch, the same co-worker who had once purchased the luxury SUV. They hadn't talked deeply in years. At first, everything seemed normal. Then the conversation changed. Ryan looked stressed, exhausted, older somehow. Eventually, he admitted something. The car payment was still there. The bigger house payment was still there. The credit card balances were still there. The lifestyle he once enjoyed had become a burden. Every month felt like survival, despite earning more than ever. Michael listened quietly, because years earlier, that could have been him. A few weeks later, another friend revealed a similar story. Different details, same outcome: high income, low freedom. The pattern repeated again and again. People were buying lives they couldn't comfortably maintain, not because they were irresponsible, because nobody taught them patience, nobody taught them delayed gratification, nobody taught them the power of waiting. Michael drove home that night thinking deeply. Most people spend their lives chasing appearances: the appearance of wealth, the appearance of success, the appearance of status. But appearances don't pay bills. Appearances don't create freedom. Appearances don't buy peace of mind. Reality does. And Michael's reality was improving every year. Then came the moment that changed everything. The moment he would remember forever. One quiet Sunday morning, he opened his financial dashboard, coffee in hand. No expectations, just another routine check. He looked at the screen, then looked again. His heart stopped. For a second, he thought there was a mistake. The number was larger than he expected, much larger. Michael leaned closer. The calculation was correct. Over the years, the money saved through the 30-day rule, combined with investing, had crossed a milestone he once considered impossible: $100,000. Not earned through luck, not inherited, not won, built, decision by decision, day by day, purchase by purchase, year by year. Michael sat in silence, because he finally understood something profound. The $100,000 wasn't the real achievement. The real achievement was the person he had become, the disciplined person, the patient person, the intentional person, the person capable of building wealth. And once you become that person, the numbers become a consequence, not the goal. But the story wasn't over, because the greatest lesson of the 30-day rule had nothing to do with money at all, and it would completely redefine Michael's understanding of success. The next few weeks felt different, not because Michael suddenly became happier, not because life became perfect, and not because $100,000 solved every problem. It didn't. Life still happened, unexpected expenses still appeared, stress still existed, challenges still arrived, but something fundamental had changed. For the first time in his adult life, money was no longer controlling him, and that's when Michael realized what the 30-day rule had truly given him. It wasn't money, it was control. Control over impulses, control over emotions, control over decisions. Most people think financial freedom begins when you have enough money. Michael discovered something different. Financial freedom begins when money stops controlling your behavior, because if someone can't control themselves with $1,000, they probably won't control themselves with $1 million. The numbers change, the habits remain. One evening, Michael found himself sitting on a rooftop overlooking the city. The sun was setting, the skyline glowed orange and gold, cars moved below, people rushed home, restaurants filled with customers, stores welcomed shoppers, and for a moment, Michael simply observed. Years ago, he would have looked at that city differently. He would have seen things he wanted, things he couldn't afford, things he hoped would make him happy. Now he saw something else. Choices. Everyone was chasing something, a bigger paycheck, a bigger house, a better title, a better car, a better life. But many people never stop to ask a simple question: how much is enough? And that's a dangerous question to ignore, because if enough is never defined, the chase never ends. Michael remembered a quote he once heard: "A man who knows he has enough is rich." At the time, he didn't understand it. Now he did. Years earlier, he believed wealth meant owning more. Now he realized wealth often means needing less. That realization changed everything, because the less you need, the more freedom you have, the less financial pressure you feel, the less stress controls your life, the less dependent you become on things that don't truly matter. And ironically, that's when money becomes most powerful, not when it's spent, when it creates options. 1 year later, Michael faced another unexpected situation. His company announced major layoffs. Employees panicked, rumors spread everywhere, people worried about losing their jobs. Many couldn't survive more than a few months without income, some couldn't survive more than a few weeks. The atmosphere became tense, fear filled the office, but Michael felt something different: calm, not because he was guaranteed to keep his job, because he knew he'd be okay either way. His savings existed, his investments existed, his expenses were manageable, his lifestyle wasn't built on debt. For years, he had been quietly building a safety net, and now that safety net was protecting him. That moment revealed the true value of wealth: not luxury, security, the ability to face uncertainty without panic, the ability to make decisions from confidence instead of fear, the ability to walk away from situations that no longer serve you. That kind of freedom is difficult to describe, but once you experience it, you never forget it. Years later, Michael often shared his story with younger people. Many expected some secret investment strategy, some expected complicated financial formulas, others expected a magical shortcut. Instead, he told them about waiting 30 days. Most laughed. The rule sounded too simple, too ordinary, too boring, but Michael always smiled, because he knew something they didn't. The most powerful financial habits are usually boring. Consistency is boring, patience is boring, discipline is boring, waiting is boring, and yet those boring behaviors build extraordinary lives. The truth is, the 30-day rule never saved Michael $100,000, his decisions did. The rule was simply a tool, a pause button, a moment between desire and action, and inside that moment, everything changed. Because every purchase asks a question: do you want satisfaction today, or freedom tomorrow? Most people answer without thinking. Michael learned to wait, and that waiting changed his future. As the years passed, his investments continued growing, his freedom continued growing, his opportunities continued growing, but the thing he valued most wasn't the money, it was the peace, the confidence, the ability to live life on his own terms. And that's the lesson. Not every financial decision changes your life overnight. Most don't, but small decisions repeated consistently can completely transform your future. One delayed purchase won't make you rich. One good habit won't change everything. 1 month won't make a difference, but years will. And someday, you may look back and realize that the biggest financial breakthrough of your life wasn't a raise, wasn't an investment, wasn't a business. It was a simple decision to stop reacting immediately to every desire, because sometimes